I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. You know, I was saying earlier, if you're a woodland owner, you really do not want to miss this episode.
Yeah, no doubt, Renee. I'm really excited about today's show. We've got a brand new guest who's never been on the show. Actually, he's a new member of our state as well. He's just moved into Kentucky recently, so we're glad to have Mr. John Schultz. Will be talking to us in just a couple of minutes about the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Certainly one of the more important agencies here in Kentucky when it comes to our landowners out there, whether they be farmers or forest landowners. And we've got John who's going to be talking about a program that's available through them to help support conservation across Kentucky through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So we'll hear more from John in a minute. And then we've got a familiar guest who's been on before, Anna Weicker, who is the naturalist at Raven Run Nature Sanctuary here in Lexington, Kentucky. And Anna always does such a great job with this. And if you're ever in that Raven Run area, make sure you go check out some of her programs. She does a real good job. But today she's going to be talking about winter wildlife trees. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Anna. So again, thanks to both our guests for being here. Renee, glad to be with you as well. If you all have got questions via Zoom, use the chat pod and we'll try to get to those. And again, thanks for being with us.
Definitely. So, let's go ahead and get started. So John, if you'd like to turn your camera on, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so I'm John Schultz. I'm the state forester for NRCS here in Kentucky, based out of Lexington. And today I'm going to be talking about specifically the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. It's a great program that we have with NRCS to support forest landowners and doing projects in their woods to conserve and protect those woodlands and those natural resources that they hold.
Excellent. Well, John, again, thank you for being here. Really looking forward to this. And, if you all have got questions or if you've got any experience working with NRCS, our viewers out there, now's a great time to kind of engage John in a little bit. But we're going to hear from John first, and then maybe we can have a little conversation, ask a few questions.
All right. So today, again, I'll be talking about specifically the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, but I think it's really great chance to get people up to speed on who the Natural Resources Conservation Service is, how we were founded, and kind of leading into the work that we do today. All right, so we're really, we got a photo here of Dr. Hugh Hammond Bennett. Hugh Hammond Bennett was the first chief of NRCS. So NRCS originally started as the Soil Conservation Service, and the Soil Conservation Service was put into, became an agency under the U.S. Department of Agriculture through the Soil Conservation Act, which is Public Law 74-46. This was all part of President Roosevelt's New Deal legislation. So in the actual public law, it recognizes the wastage of soil and moisture resources on farm, grazing, and forest lands is a menace to the national welfare. So even from our founding, written in the public law, private forest land is a cornerstone to natural resources conservation in the United States. So in the early days, we worked landowners on their farms to really address soil conservation and erosion effects that stemmed mostly out of the Dust Bowl and other erosion that was happening throughout the United States. So way back in the early days, we really didn't have any cost assistance programs like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program or any of the other programs that we now administer. Early on, the work was completed on farms by the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Civilian Works Administration, the Works Progress Administration, and many other public agencies. So we also, in this founding of our agency, established a network of regional nurseries around the country that provided seeds and seedlings to support the program. Now those are our plant material centers, and those are spread throughout the country, and they're really great in developing species of native plants that are adapted for different conservation needs, especially for forest land, different tree seedlings and other native plants that do well in woodlands. So fast forwarding in 1994, Congress initiated a major reorganization of the USDA, and the Soil Conservation Service was renamed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service to better reflect the broad scope of our agency's mission. This also brought in the financial assistance programs that we now administer, of which the Environmental Quality Incentives Program is really our cornerstone program. So just to give everybody an idea of how we're organized in Kentucky, we have 3 different areas of the state. So called Area 1, Area 2, Area 3. And each of those areas is broken up into a different work unit. And each work unit has a district conservationist that is in charge of administering the program in their service area. So there's coverage, NRCS coverage throughout the entire state. So really the where to start with NRCS and really going back to the early days of when we were the Soil Conservation Service and didn't have financial assistance programs is really that on-farm plan, that conservation plan that a landowner can get from NRCS to help them determine what are the resource issues and what are the opportunities to do work to address those issues. Looking at the landowner's goals for their property and looking into the future as far as what projects may enhance woodlands for not just for now, but for future generations to benefit from. And so we do that through a 9-step planning process where we identify those resource issues and then develop those alternatives to treat those resource issues. So with forest land, it really is unique. So because there's a multiple of actual forest land issues, we call the conservation plan forest management plan, but really it's just a conservation plan for the forest. And so we work closely with private foresters, consulting foresters, as well as our Kentucky Division of Forestry folks and NRCS planners that all work in assistance to get the forest management plan completed in the beginning of our assistance with forest landowners. So really wanted to highlight kind of the steps to assistance. The first step, again, is that planning step. So really understanding what the resource issues are, what are the opportunities, kind of how would you address those opportunities. So that's taken in the planning phase. Then if there's work that can be done through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, then the landowner would fill out an application and apply for that financial assistance program. Each program that we administer has different eligibility criteria, and so that part's taken care of in the application during the application period. So to keep it fair for all landowners, there are requirements. This is so we don't get folks that I believe currently it's over $900,000 that you would make an off-farm income would make it so you wouldn't be eligible for the EQIP program. But it's a pretty high bar. So working with your local district conservationist, you would determine if you're eligible for the program. Once we get all those projects together, then we do an actual ranking of those projects. And then once funded, implementation of the project can begin. So specifically for the EQIP program, it's a cost reimbursement program. There's a set rate for each of the, what we call it, NRCS conservation practice. And so there's a variety of practices that we can implement, help landowners implement on forest land and woodlands here in Kentucky. So some common things that Kentucky woodland owners are doing out there currently through the EQIP program would be invasive species control and removal of invasive species from their woodlands, doing timber stand improvement, everything from mid-story removal type treatments to crop tree release to if there's a like high value kind of area with walnut or white oak, really improving those trees so they can be best quality trees for the long-term health of the forest. We also work with a lot of landowners that have woods, but also have cattle. And so looking at their woods as an area to grow trees, a lot of times if livestock are allowed to be in those woods, you're not seeing the seedlings growing. So livestock exclusion can be an important part of managing those woodlands out there. We also do a lot of tree planting and just establishing that natural regeneration, getting that next crop of healthy trees established in the woods. And then a lot of landowners are really interested in improving and managing their woods for wildlife habitat. So there's a variety of different projects that somebody can take on to help with that. If there's any interest in further information about NRCS and specifically about forestry, just wanted to say I'm available at any time to answer questions and take calls. Most easily can be reached through my email, which is john.shultz@usda.gov.
John, thank you. And welcome to Kentucky officially. I know you and I've had a chance to work together on a number of projects and programs since you've been here, but I'm just so delighted to have you here in the state.
Yeah, super glad to be here and new challenges definitely with this position that I'm in, but enjoying every minute that I've had here in the state.
Well, you're really setting the bar, I guess, because you're the first person in that position here in Kentucky. And I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Kentucky NRCS for really putting a lot of emphasis on the woodlands and our woodland owners here in the state of Kentucky. That's an audience that's near and dear to my heart and our whole departments because they own most of the land in the state and most of the forest land. So we're always trying to support them. To have such a prominent organization such as NRCS to dedicate that emphasis to forestry. Thank you. Really, we do appreciate that.
We did have a question that came in. It says, is there an on-farm income requirement to qualify for EQIP? They said they're relatively new farm owners and want to implement some of the practices, but have limited on-farm income.
No, there's no on-farm income requirement. To establish your farm, what you'd want to do is visit your local NRCS office, build that relationship, and then they'll get your information and get you enrolled. But there's no income requirement required other than that you're eligible for the program and that you own or control the property.
John, you had mentioned that there was like a maximum income, outside that you could receive like $900,000. But other than that, are there any other restrictions, or who all I guess is eligible? Is it everybody that's just not making more than $900,000, or how does that kind of eligibility work?
Yeah, so basic eligibility is that you own or control land in Kentucky. So ownership is shown obviously through a deed. Partial owners, if you own with family, that is that's okay. If on the controlling the land, if you control the land through like a long-term lease agreement or something, either through family or another entity, then that can also make you eligible for to receive the EQIP program.
So really a lot of different folks, right? are
Yeah,
eligible for this,
yeah,
you know, and, you
yeah.
know, we're always encouraging, you know, it's one of the things that we try to put in all of our programs is trying to connect individuals with NRCS, because you all are one of the few entities that really not only can provide that technical assistance, but you also have that financial assistance to help get stuff done on the ground. Talk a little bit
Right.
about the kind of the sign up process. I know you said visit the local NRCS. Is there timing associated with that, or anything that landowners need to know?
Yeah, so for EQIP, once you have that forest management plan, and EQIP assistance is available to actually get your forest management plan if you want to use a private consultant to write that plan. But we do what's called a continuous sign up. So now we're in fiscal year 2023. October 1st is the start of the federal fiscal year. So we're few months into our 2023 program. Signups can happen at any time. There are certain times of the year where those applications will be ranked and funding decisions made. But really, it's what we call a continuous sign up. So getting in and getting your application in at any time.
So do you have to have a farm number?
Yeah, so part of the eligibility is for the EQIP program would be that you would have what we call a farm number, which can be confusing for woodland owners because, you know, we're using that traditional, you know, farm kind of nomenclature, and woodland owners may not see their woods as a farm, but it's really just a way to identify that land has been mapped out. It's in the USDA system, and it's assigned what we call a farm number and a track number. And then it's associated with you, and it has your information tied to it, name, address, phone number, so on and so forth. And some of those eligibility documents that you would fill out at the local office.
Is there a minimum number of acres?
No, there's no minimum number of acres to be eligible.
I've got like 10
We're
acres, right?
working. Yeah, no minimum number. So we're kind of a good side note is we're going to be starting to launch a urban forestry type program and just urban conservation on its own. And so working with folks, you know, even less than a half an acre that may be you know, growing for a farmer's market or so on and so forth. So really we could be looking at acreages getting pretty small, that, you know, that it's basically if you can control the land, and you're a farmer or a forest landowner, then you're eligible no matter what size of land that you're operating on.
That's really good news for a lot of folks. You know, I know that some of the programs we deal with, John, for woodland owners have, you know, acreage limitations, whether it's fish and wildlife can't come out unless you have 25 acres, can't get a forest stewardship land with, you know, you gotta have at least 10 acres. But it's good to hear that there are some programs available if you're under that category. And we certainly have a lot of landowners in the state that fit that billing, you know, that less than 10 acres. So the ability for them to participate in a meaningful way in conservation and woodland wildlife practices is really awesome. And it's exciting to hear that this is a kind of new endeavor you all are kind of, you know, developing further here in the state. You mentioned, I was going to say, John, real quick, and this is a question I've gotten from landowners for. You talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to circle back to it. Talking about the FSA and getting that farm number, you don't. I think some of the, like you said it, and you mentioned it, but I know some of the woodland owners say, "But I'm not got any crops. I don't have any livestock. How do I get that farm number?" Is there anything that they need to talk to FSA about that to kind of demonstrate or show that they're an actual farm, or do you have any advice for them as they kind of navigate that process of getting that farm number established through FSA if they're not participating in traditional agriculture?
Right. I think the biggest thing is making sure if you're a woodland or forest land owner, that you have your document from the county and your deed, and really showing yes, I own this land. And more importantly, here's what the boundary is. So we want to make sure that we're getting really accurate property boundaries into the FSA system. Oftentimes with woods, it's not really clear when you look at the aerial imagery, kind of where those property lines are. But going in, showing that you have proof either through a deed or through a lease, you can work with the FSA to make sure that the farm, the woodlands are mapped correctly, and yeah, really kind of getting that step behind you, so you can really dive into that working with NRCS and getting that forest plan done, and then on to doing good work through EQIP.
You're right.
So we had another question come in that says, what is the duration of a typical EQIP contract? And can you be granted additional contracts once they're complete?
Good question.
Yeah, so great question. So typically an EQIP contract will be between 2 and 3 years, really looking at what practices can you take on in a short time span, that are going to have that huge benefit to the woods, whether it be, you're going to do an invasive species control and then maybe a little timber stand improvement. An EQIP contract can go up to 10-year time frame. So we can, if there's a more complex kind of management that needs to happen out there, and we're really looking at using kind of a longer term system, 10 years is the max that we can go on EQIP. The other thing is you can have more than one EQIP contract actually running at the same time. We try to make it so you can have one EQIP contract, and then once you're through with that, then kind of roll into the next one if needed. Or you can take care of kind of all the resource issues on the farm or woodlands through that one EQIP contract. But yeah, there's definitely options to have more than one EQIP contract on your property.
They also wanted to know, is there a way to check the status online within the system?
Yeah, so that's great. There's a couple of resources that are available, and there's some great landowner interface systems. So I'd encourage folks to check out farmers.gov, and then our NRCS website. NRCS, had it written down so I can nail it. NRCS.usda.gov. And but of course, if you have a current EQIP contract and have any questions, just to really encourage folks to reach out to the local service center, talk to that district conservationist that services your area. We've got some great folks here in Kentucky, and they'll drop everything to answer anybody's question when it comes to an EQIP contract that's currently going on.
Yeah. Speaking of multiple contracts, I've had the privilege of my job to see a lot of woodland owner properties across Kentucky, all across the state. And many of those that have been very well managed and taken care of, John, have been supported by NRCS, funding and contracts. It really allows them to do a lot on the property that otherwise might not take place. So, really encourage all of our woodland owners to, seek out and take advantage of these opportunities, because it can offset some of those expenses. When we're talking about trees, it's a long-term enterprise. So you have to carry those costs for a long time. So if there's ways to help offset those costs, which you all have, it's really a big incentive to try to get some good management done here in Kentucky's woods. So please, if you don't have a relationship with NRCS, develop one. It's a great relationship that'll serve you well for a long time.
Definitely.
All right, John, anything else before we wrap up here that you want to kind of leave with our viewers?
No, I would just echo what you said, Billy. In my time here, less than a year being in Kentucky, I've had a chance to get out on in view a lot of woodlands throughout the state, and just the conservation ethic that woodland owners have here in Kentucky. It's unbelievable. I've just floored by the amount of work and just passion that folks have here for their woodlands. And so again, encourage everybody, if you haven't developed a relationship with your local NRCS office, please do so. We've got a lot of support. EQIP is one of the programs that we have. We have many more other assistance that we can provide to woodland landowners. So develop that relationship and see all that we have to offer.
Indeed. Well, Renee, we'll have to get John back here. John, if you got things that are, kind of perking up or percolating across, let us know, and we'll be an outlet to try to help you get that word out, because we're all about trying to support good woodland conservation here in Kentucky too. So our missions are aligned.
Right, exactly.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Very much so. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. It is
information.
Yes, it was. And it's getting colder outside, and
Yes.
Wildlife needs some treats as well.
They do. Trees are the answer, right?
Right.
And we've got our friendly guest here, Anna Weicker with Raven Run Nature Sanctuary. Anna, welcome back.
We greatly appreciate you being on and talking about winter wildlife treats.
For sure. I was so busy taking notes from John's presentation, I forgot we were going on a winter wildlife treat, but I am ready to talk about that tiny scale habitat improvement. So I'm ready if y'all are ready.
Go for it.
All right.
Let's do it. All right. How are we looking on you all's end?
Looks great.
All right. So yes, like was just mentioned a minute ago, my name is Anna, and I am based out of Raven Run Nature Sanctuary, which is in southern Fayette County on the Madison County line. So if you are ever that way, for sure stop by. We've always got lots of things going on, lots of exciting hiking, even during the winter time. So it is a great way to get outside during this time of year. Always have to give a little plug. But today we're specifically focusing on some ways that you can make your space a little bit more wildlife friendly. And maybe give yourself something to do sort of during the holiday season that'll spruce your outside up a little bit, and let your local critters know that you care about them and you love them and you want to give them a little holiday treat. So there are lots of benefits to this. Of course, it's going to help out your neighbors, and I don't mean like your human neighbors, because they probably don't want a pine cone covered in peanut butter, although maybe they do, I don't know. But your critter neighbors are going to be very appreciative of these kind of little crafts and improvements that you can make. Wintertime can be hard for everybody, but it can certainly be hard for the animals that are out there in it 24/7 trying to get some food. It's also a really good way to get family and friends involved. Kids love this kind of thing because it is an adult approved excuse to make a giant mess everywhere. So it's a great way to get kids, engaged with something, especially during Christmas break. It's some awesome crafting opportunities for kids. And I will say, not all of us love winter. I know there are some cold weather fans out there, but I am not one of them. I would much prefer it to be sweet tea weather all the time. So I think that it's also a great way to give yourself a little bit of a boost during the cold winter months to set up some type of animal, wildlife, bird feeding station where, you can enjoy that interaction with the natural world without having to leave your house and go outside and get all wet and cold. There's lots of health and mental health benefits to feeding birds and interacting with wildlife in general in that way. So it can also be just good for you to have something to do during the sort of cold, dark part of the year. So what are some things that you can gather together probably pretty easily right now to start investing in a little wildlife holiday themed outdoor feeding area? Number one, of course, is bird seed. And this is pretty easy for everybody to get a hold of. You can go to most any grocery store, chain store, and get bird seed. I will say, especially for the few little crafts that we're going to go over really quickly, if you can invest in a little bit of a higher quality blend, it will save you a lot of mess down the road. Because birds can be picky, and I know, they're kind of, they're being a little bit of a freeloader, but they can be picky. And they don't love milo and millet, which are two really common elements in birdseed. And a lot of the times, less expensive birdseed is going to have a ton of millet and milo because it's cheap to produce. But because not as many birds like that, a lot of the times it gets wasted, especially for the crafts that I'm going to talk about that are more for birds that are going to be up off the ground. The millet and milo really doesn't get eaten. You do have some ground birds like doves that are going to eat it, but for the purposes of kind of what we're going to talk about today, I would really focus on buying something that is going to give you more black oil sunflower, white striped sunflower, either one of those. They have lots and lots of protein in them for the cold weather, and birds are going to love that. So yes, they can be a little bit picky. But if you want to avoid the mess and, make sure your birds are happy, then focus a little bit more on that sunflower element, especially of your bird seed. The other thing that you're going to want to grab is peanut butter, which I know is not necessarily on the agenda for everybody. And if allergies are a concern, there's so many great alternatives to peanut butter out there. If you have kids, you're probably familiar with them because, they might not be able to bring peanut butter to school. But, sunflower butter is a great one. That's what I use for birds. Almond butter, lots of great alternatives. You do want to be careful using these during warmer spells because there could be issues with spoiling, but more commonly the issue is that they're going to get kind of soft and melty if there's peanut butter in there, and birds can get that in their feathers and then they can't get it out again. So that can prevent them from, getting warm enough. It can prevent them from, being able to trap that heat in their feathers. So definitely keep the peanut butter and peanut butter alternative to the cold weather. And then you'll see all over Pinterest and the internet, lots of different recipes for like bird cookie dough or bird suet using household substitutes like bacon grease. I would just be really hesitant. Do your research if you're using something like that. Bacon grease, for example, is a popular one, but it really has so many preservatives in it that it's not great for birds, which never stopped me, but it's not great for birds. So, just kind of do your research if you're using something outside peanut butter or common peanut butter alternatives. And fruit. This is a good one, I think, for a winter bird feeding station because it looks so festive. Apples and oranges are really easy to find this time of year, really easy for kids to handle. And they are really valued by birds, especially some of the birds that are not going to come to your feeder for bird seed. So like mockingbirds, thrashers, bluebirds, robins, those guys don't really care about bird seed, but if they see an orange, then they're likely to come around and get a little bit of that fruit treat. And then of course we have this cute little red-bellied woodpecker over here, and they will eat seeds, of course, but he is also loving that he has a little orange with jelly on it over there to eat as well. So birds like some diet variety, just like we do. So a couple little ideas. These are a couple of ones that I have made this year. There's so many options all over the internet, all kinds of things people have tried. Bird feeders out of, recycled material, out of natural material. Just really your imagination is the limit with it. There's tons of stuff. And I've noticed that kids are really good at coming up with, crafty ideas for bird feeders as well. So these are by no means the only options, but these are a couple that I find a lot of fun to make with kids and by yourself and look, pretty and fun when you hang them outside. So I have been really liking these teacup bird feeders. I think it's cool if you can take You know, if you have kids of your own, kids in your life, go to Goodwill and get a bunch of like holiday themed 50-cent teacups and make a little teacup tree with teacup bird feeders. You know, I think that would be a really pretty and fun little project for the holiday season that the birds would appreciate. All you really need though is a mug with a handle. You do need the bird seed or peanut butter alternative. And then there's a few different ways that you can go as far as attaching everything together. And I will show you a couple examples here in the next slide, but this one you can see in this picture has a saucer glued to it so the seed can kind of spill out. That's definitely an option that you can, but don't need to do. So I used a little enamelware cup for this one, nice and light because it, if you have a bunch of them on the same tree and it's made out of, you know, porcelain, china, it can weigh the tree down. So you do kind of have to watch out for that. But I used an enamel one there. You just mix up that peanut butter and bird seed until it looks like some nice cookie dough with an adequate number of chocolate chips in it. And once you have your cookie dough for the birds already, you just fill the cup with it, push it into the back of the cup, and pop it in the freezer until that mixture is frozen. With this one, I just put a stick like directly into the frozen mixture so the birds could hop on there, you know, and start chowing down. But there's different options. You know, you could do the little saucer hot glued to the bottom. This one I use yarn to put around it. And you know, that kind of gives the bird a little bit of a grip if they want to land up here. And then we've got the little stick down there and they can just perch wherever and, you know, start chowing down. So that one is fun for kids, especially because they could choose a cup if you know, go out shopping. Maybe you've got tons and tons of extra mugs that rain down out of your cupboard whenever you open it. This might be a good way to use up some of them. And you can also grab some permanent markers, let kids personalize them. Lots and lots and lots of fun options that you can really work, you know, your holiday theme into these for sure. This one is a classic. I feel like we've all done it in school or we've done it with kids before. Maybe we've done it by ourselves before because it's super cute and it's very, very holiday themed. You know, I always think that pine cones are definitely nature's Christmas ornament, not trademark. So just sprucing them up a little bit with some bird seed makes them a really great option for birds, and it's a very natural way for them to feed. You do want to find a pine cone that is open, so the scales will sometimes be closed depending on where the pine cone is in its life cycle and the weather and that kind of thing, but you really want one where the scales are open so it has all that those crevices that birds like to forage in. And then if you've not done this before, what you do is you just get a knife, get your peanut butter alternative, and just start slapping it on there, working it into the pine cone, and then rolling it in bird seed until you've got enough stuck on there. And I would recommend freezing this as well before you put it outside. Another great one for kids because they get to make a huge mess. So they always enjoy making those. Then you can just put a little string on there and hang it up just like an ornament. And it's super cute. And birds love this. Again, this is a very natural way for them to forage. A lot of these seed eaters. So this is one that I have made before when I'm feeling fancy and I make my orange juice out of real oranges. When you use those like little cup orange juicers that you put the half on orange over and like twist it until you have all the juice out. And you get this little leftover, like half of an orange peel that is just perfect to make a cute little hanging bird feeder. You can make the same like cookie dough out of peanut butter and bird seed and just scoop it into the empty orange brine, let it freeze. I used a couple sticks. You could use popsicle sticks, skewers, whatever, you know, kind of works for you, and construct it like that. And I have found that birds are always interested to check it out because they see that bright color and they stay for the delicious peanut butter. So that one is kind of a fun one and a fun way to use up citrus rinds if you make juice like that. And it's also a great excuse to make your juice like that and be a little fancy. Fruit, like we talked about a couple of minutes ago, this is such a good way to attract birds that are not going to come in for seeds. So if you want to see some bluebirds, mockingbirds, thrashers, that kind of thing, they are going to love it if you make some fruit garlands and hang them up outside. Do keep in mind that a lot of these birds are not, I don't want to say they're not like athletic, because it's not really what I mean, but like they're not like a woodpecker. They're not going to really be clinging onto something, hanging upside down, you know, off of one toe to get a seed or something like that. So you do want to make sure that you hang some of these, or, you know, put them on branches in such a way that some of these birds that are a little bit larger, that don't feed like woodpeckers and that hatches chickadees, that kind of thing, are able to actually reach the fruit. And there's so many different ways you can do it. You can skewer it straight onto a branch. You can put it on like a shish kebab, you know, thing and hang it. I made this little one down here in the corner that I put a pine cone on the bottom of. And this one is a little bit hard for the larger birds to perch on. So I have some other ones that are not in this picture that they can access, but I love a pine cone. I love a pine cone. So I have a little pine cone there on the bottom for decoration. So a few tips after, you know, that sort of quick little rundown of some DIYs. And again, there's so many good ones out there. There's so many cute ones. I always love seeing ones that folks come up with every year when we do programs for winter wildlife feeding, because people's imagination is just absolutely incredible and so crafty. I always see something new. But a few tips once you've figured out what you're going to make and how you're going to present it, and, you know, you've got your birds coming in and all that kind of cool stuff. Of course, keep the area tidy. I just like to choose one tree that I can see from my kitchen window, and I hang everything on that. And then I just make sure that it's not getting too nasty out there. You don't want it to be, you know, just a bunch of loose, messy food everywhere. You don't want the potential for it to harbor disease, that kind of thing. So, you know, I just try to keep it as tidy as possible. I do bring in things that can spoil when the temperature rises above freezing or melt. So that would be any suet, like animal fat based thing, and your peanut butter, all that kind of stuff that can melt and get gummed up in feathers when the temperature goes above freezing. I do just put that in a plastic tote, bring it inside, keep it frozen until the weather is cold again. Of course, you probably know you may have critters around your yard, around your community, around your woodlot that you might not want coming in and partaking in your delicious holiday snacks. If that is the case, I would certainly think about preventative measures. That could be bringing everything in at night if you have possums, raccoons, skunks. It just kind of depends on what animal that you don't want to come around. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then think about ways that you can sort of integrate this into, you know, your daily life or school projects, or things to keep your kids entertained, or things to keep yourself entertained while it's cold. Some great citizen science projects that focus on bird feeding in particular are Project Feeder Watch and the Great Backyard Bird Count. Both of those are put on by Cornell. I could talk forever and ever about how cool they are, but I will drop those links in the chat so that information will be in the chat if you're interested in participating in those, counting and reporting the species of birds that you see for, you know, sort of collecting that scientific data. A couple other tiny little things that you can keep in mind, especially around the holidays, that help birds out that are not food related. Shelter is really important to birds in the wintertime and all times, but especially in the wintertime, to both avoid predators and protect themselves from bad weather. So if you are out in the country, if you've got, you know, a woodlot, a fence row, that might not be such an issue, but in town, it can be an issue because there's not very much cover. So if you have the ability to build a brush pile, that is awesome. Birds greatly appreciate that, and other animals do as well, like this cute little bunny. You can reuse your Christmas tree if it is a live Christmas tree. Throw it in a corner, perfect little hiding spot for sparrows and, you know, little bunnies like this, critters that are trying to stay warm and hide from predators. So that is a great way to reuse your Christmas tree. And if that's not an option for you and you do have a live tree, there's tons of great programs around the state that Fish and Wildlife do, where you can donate your live tree and they sink it into a pond or a body of water and they use it for fish habitat. So that's another great way you can sort of decorate for the holidays for wildlife, even if you are not going to see it. Only the fish will see it, but they will still appreciate it. You can build brush piles if you don't have a live Christmas tree. So many great resources for that. I can drop some of those in the chat as well. There is a whole science of building a brush pile. So that can be a great way to warm up and you know, do some activities outside during the winter time when you're not really doing gardening, that kind of thing. So if you have a lot of land, you can really commit to this. You can do some big like 10-foot by 10-foot brush piles for quail and that kind of thing. But even if you just have a small yard or a small area in an apartment complex, you can still build some little brush piles, make sure that your local critters have some shelter and somewhere to warm up and keep safe in between eating your delicious holiday treats that you put out for them, of course. And then last of all, water. I don't think a lot of us think about this when it's cold, but birds need water when it's cold too, just like humans do. And even just breaking the ice on a container of water can make sure that they are able to get that hydration that they need even during the winter time when it's pretty cold. So even if you don't want to invest in like a fancy heated bird bath, even again, just having a container of water that you can refill or, you know, break the ice on is most appreciated by birds even during the winter. So those are my thoughts for today. I'm happy to answer any questions, but other than that, I believe that is all I have going on this year for Winter Wildlife Week.
Well, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you doing that. You know, I noticed last year, like I had this container that I would keep water in to water my tomatoes on my porch. And it froze because I forgot to move it beforehand. And I noticed once the sun hit it, it would kind of melt it a little bit and the little birds were coming to and drinking out of that last winter. So I thought, maybe I need to leave that and let them have a
it always goes under my radar and I have to consciously remind myself that, you know, not only do I have to drink water in the wintertime, but also birds do.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I missed the most was during COVID is that I enjoyed the most rather is that I would see all these birds coming to my deck that I never normally saw before, you know.
Because you were,
Because I was home. Yeah, I was home during the day when it was actually daylight and not dark at 5 o'clock, you know. So it was in the warmer days you would see the birds come and it was very nice to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like free TV.
Yeah, exactly.
But better because it's birds. Better because it is birds.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, and I'm sure we'll have you on again doing something else wildlife related. But we always appreciate you being on and doing your talk.
Yes, yeah, you're always welcome here, Anna. Thank you for all you do, really.
Thank you for having me. I'll go ahead and just drop those links that I mentioned in the chat. And otherwise, I will stick around. So if anyone has any questions, I will be here.
Wonderful. Good show today.
Really, really cool topics. You know, we learned a lot about how we can take care of our wildlife in the winter. And if you're a woodland owner or other landowner, we learned how you can access financial as well as technical assistance to take care of your property. It's kind of like a win-win, Renee.
I know, right? Yeah, we greatly appreciate you joining us today. And, you know, anytime there's any questions that you have about something that we've talked about, you can go to fromthewoodstoday.com and all of our shows are on there. We have over 100 of them at this.
I know, you can binge watch away. So
you could, you really could. And also on fromthewoodstoday.com, there's a little survey where you can send us information about the shows that you like, or if you see something in your woods, you're like, what is that? You can take a picture and attach it to it and send it to us. And you never know, we may be a future episode awaiting.
Yeah, no, we'll discover it together. So yeah, I'll pass it along. And thank y'all for being with us. We do appreciate it. If you know of others that may appreciate this show, please share it with them and let them know about it.
Definitely. And we did have a couple questions that came in about that. And I think Anna's just going to answer them via the chat. So you should
Okay.
be able to get those.
Excellent.
But we greatly appreciate it. Remember, next week is Thanksgiving. So even though it's not Wednesday, it's Thursday, but we're going to take next week off. So we will not have a show next week. So we just wanted to remind our folks, but we will be back again at 11 o'clock the week after.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you, folks. Do appreciate y'all.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
From the woods today.